Today we're talking about what to do when you know you need content and how to really get started. That initial hurdle, that staring at a white page or a blank page. How do you get started creating content? How to create a plan behind that, especially when we're all busy and we're all involved in other duties. So we're going to dive into this topic, and I have with me my business partner Irina, and we're gonna chat through this, and hopefully this is as much for us as it is for you. We're dealing with these same kind of topics as we're creating a new wave of organic content for our company. And I think you're going to find that you're struggling with the same things that we are. So, we dug into a lot of just like, what is organic content in our first episode and what you can do. And this podcast itself is sort of a product of that. And now the question is, all right, so we have sort of this system, and this literally just happened, that we set up this time to record. And now we're filling that with our information. But how do we get to that point of recording or just putting yourself out there? And I think there's two parts of this: the mental or the psychological block of doing it, and then the technical, like scheduling and plugging it into our already existing busy lives. So, Irina, what do you want to tackle first?
Well, I mean, I think for a lot of creators or for a lot of entrepreneurs and business owners, it starts with the overwhelm of the fact that their schedules are already so full, but they know that they need to be doing
Yeah.
organic content. And I think the first step for me when, for example, I feel overwhelmed like that is to start with the first minimum viable action that I can take. What is the simplest, the easiest, one little tiny thing that I can put on my calendar that I can commit to
Hmm.
without getting myself more overwhelmed?
Yeah. Yeah, because it's easy to like fall in the trap of looking at the big picture and going, oh, okay, I'm committing to, and we talked about it last week about like that feeling that I was having of like, oh, I'm committing to this every week. And it's easy to kind of get lost in the weeds on that. But I totally agree of like, picking one actionable item. And I think that's different for everybody. I love I'm a big title person. I like having those like kind of what's the title? What's the, or what's the logo, or what is the um, you know, and it could be a piece of content. Maybe it's that burning question that you have always wanted to answer, or you feel like you talk a lot about. Whatever that is, of like what's an easy accomplishable thing, but I think also what gets you excited, what makes it fun. Because I think if it if it if it becomes too work related, or it becomes too like I have to do this or task oriented, then it becomes overwhelming and it becomes just another thing on your to-do list versus like the thing that gets you excited and the thing that makes you, want to do that. And that's where the longevity is going to come. And I hope we all got into business because we wanted to do some version of whatever your industry is. But even within that, it should be like, well, peeling back, what's the fun? What's the joy of it? And tapping into that.
Right, exactly. And maybe it's something that you're already doing, but now you look at it from a different angle and you go, you know what, my followers can actually benefit from seeing this thing that I do or hearing my thoughts on this that I,
Yeah.
brainstorm on every day anyway.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's a big one, because I think when this gets into the psychology of it, but I think this idea of like this world of content creation that we're in now didn't exist 20 years ago, 30 years ago. So it's still very fresh. It's very new. And this concept of even in our personal lives, of social media and putting ourselves out there, like that idea of like, oh, I'm going to take this picture of my vacation, but I better make sure it looks good because I'm going to put it on a public forum and everybody's going to see it. That's a new concept, you know?
Yeah.
Like, I'm of the age that I remember taking photos with a film camera and not knowing what it looked like and getting it
Mhm.
developed and still knowing nobody will see this if I don't want them to because it's going to
Mhm.
go in an album and it's going to get tucked away. And this is for me and my family. And this is private. This not even private, but it's personal. It's this is our own thing. The idea of it being publicly shared is such a
Mhm.
bizarre, when you think about it, it's just such a
Yeah.
bizarre thing. And so I think that what that does is psychologically it creates this extra barrier in what we're doing, that
Mhm.
going, well, everything I do now becomes public or it has to be public, and which forces me to think about my lighting and how I'm positioned and do I sound right and
Mhm.
is my hair combed right, that
Yeah.
image that we're putting forward, not to mention the fear of, oh, I don't want to say the wrong thing, or I don't want to stumble over my words or mispronounce this, or I don't want to. And it just, I think to me that becomes that extra burden that is, I don't want to say unimportant, but is just something that just has to be broken through to get past that, because what we talked about last week, the authenticity and the
Mhm.
realness is what's going to come through. So the more that you can kind of remove the vanity or try to set that aside, um, and not let that be a barrier, is going to produce more content and make it easier to do.
Exactly. I think that yes, trying to make an effort to make it look good, sound good, feel good is good for the aesthetics, for the people watching it, and if you're truly enjoying the process of actually applying all those details and
Yeah.
making it look good and making it sound good. But if it becomes something that actually is stopping you from
Yeah.
sharing your content because you think it's never good enough, that's when you get into the psychological territory of like seeking outside approval and
Right.
validation from your viewers versus just sharing authentically what's on your mind or
Yeah.
what you want to share with people.
Right. Right.
And that's like in general, that's a bigger issue of, do you really need that validation and why do you share your content? Do you share your content to help, to have fun, to let people in on what your world is and how maybe they can peek in and how you can help them improve their lives because of this little thing maybe you do or you know? Or are you doing it because you're seeking approval and validation from someone else?
Right.
So you kind of have to get back down to why you're doing this. And if you're just sharing it for the fun and for the joy of it and for the help to others with the information that you have, then don't worry about the look, the sound, just just share. But if you truly enjoy putting all this time and effort into the look and the sound and putting it all together and just like going step by step, there's a lot of people who truly enjoy all the single details of having it all nice and polished
Mhm.
and beautiful and then sharing it, then yes, go for it. But don't let it stop you from actually sharing what you need to share.
Yeah, yeah. So many great points were made in what you just said, and I think um, the big one is the focusing on the why of what you're doing, and sometimes that's a tough question to answer, and it may not be as obvious on the surface, but I truly believe the minute that you make it not about yourself, but about the person you're talking to. And this is conversation engagement 101. I mean, this is just human connection. The minute you make it about the other person, the person that you're talking to, um, one, it takes the pressure off of you because now you're not worried about what you look like, but you're just trying to help them out. It starts to chip away at that barrier. And this is where the honesty comes in because, I think that social media has created this kind of hole or this vacuum that we're trying to fill ourselves. And this is just a personal discovery that I think each person needs to have of like going, if it is about, I want to create this content to get some form of validation, whatever that is. Hey, you're so pretty. Hey, you are so well spoken. Hey, you are so smart about this thing. Whatever that is, I think you need to be, have some honesty to that. And if that's the case, then know that's the direction you're going, and then that's a different that's a different path entirely. But if you can be honest enough and say, hey, I'm not doing this. In fact, I'm a little intimidated about getting in front of a camera, in front of a microphone, but I truly believe that what I have to say can help other people. Um, then make that the focus. And I mean, I could do a whole, podcast on this in itself of like that sort of workaround of how to present yourself and how to talk to people. And it's again, it's conversation 101 of like going, hey, when you're at a party and you're meeting people, you could sit there and talk about yourself all night and probably lose a lot of interest. But the minute you start asking other people questions and you start asking what they're interested in and finding what they're passionate about, you'll find yourself connecting with people on a whole new level. That's on a one-on-one kind of situation. But if you apply that same concept to creating content, oh, it just opens up a whole nother world of possibilities. And it makes it more fun. I truly believe it's more fun to focus on other people and get them, you know, that being the form of validation of going, hey, I really helped somebody out with this versus trying to, I help myself out.
Yeah, it's so interesting. It sounds like kind of reverse psychology or approaching it backwards, but the best conversation skills has the person who can listen better versus
Yeah.
talks the most. And it's interesting if you think about if you go out, I don't know, to a networking event or to a party and you start meeting new people that you never met and you start talking to them. If you, like you said, if you just talk about yourself the entire time, they will just turn away and go
Yeah.
talk to someone else. But if you just sit there and listen and keep asking questions and make them talk about themselves more than you do about you, that's what they're going to be excited about. And they're going to be like, oh, you are such a great person to talk to. Thank you for
Yeah.
coming and introducing yourself. I love to stay in contact. So, how do you apply that to content that you make organically to where it's just you in front of the camera? I think one of the ways is not just be absorbed into delivering the information, but also kind of engaging in conversation and seeing what your audience is interested in and trying to engage with those topics
Yeah.
versus
Mm.
trying to think or versus positioning yourself as I know everything and this is what I have to say. Be more flexible, I guess, on the standpoint of what are the audience actually saying? What are they asking?
Yeah.
What are they interested in? Maybe there's some way of doing something that I haven't thought of, and I
Hmm.
saw somebody say it, and let me mention it and let me give them credit for that because I didn't know that. It's
Yeah.
again comes back to honesty and not claiming that you know everything, admitting that you are
Yeah.
learning just like everybody else. I don't believe that there's anybody on this planet who knows everything and who can be a truly like an expert. Oh, I said this is the truth, and this is the only way of doing it. There's so many different ways of doing different things. And the more you're open to listening and seeing other different ways and actually engaging with all of them in different ways, the more interesting your conversation becomes.
Yeah. And there's a thing in sales that's called the shoulder to shoulder technique where it positions you, and this can be applied to content, where it positions you where you physically stand beside the person that you're selling to, and both looking at whatever the product or service that you're doing. And that just positioning that way is aligning yourself as the smart friend to the person, rather than, hey, I have all the information, I'm talking directly to you. And, on a content side, I think this is why tutorials and screen shares and things like that work, because that's proverbially what you're doing is you're sitting beside them looking at a monitor and going, okay, look at this. We're discovering this together. Oh, wow, that's interesting. If you click on this and you're doing this together. But I think you can also do that in the way you talk, like you were describing, is like not being handling it like you're on a pulpit and you're preaching to somebody, but you're going, honestly, it's what we're doing right now. Just to peel back the curtain, is we're going, hey, these are things we're struggling with in our business. And here's some insight that we have, but here's some questions we have. Which, oh, by the way, this is a bonus with content, is when you go, hey, you know what? I don't know the answer to this. Leave a comment. Tell me what you guys think of what's the best way to get people to listen to the message you have, versus talking at them or talking with them. Share in the comments below and tell us, because I don't have all the answers. And just by doing that, you increase your engagement, and now you're creating a community that's now working with you rather than just passively absorbing what they're doing. And to me, it's the difference of, a podcast and an audiobook. Is like, people aren't going to just, they want to listen to a podcast because it's a living creation. If I make a comment, or I send feedback, or I send some sort of message to the creators of this, the chances are higher that they're going to read that and respond to that by the next episode. And whether they specifically respond to that or they just generally talk about it, I'm part of that conversation, versus, you're not going to listen to chapter 1 of an audiobook and then write the author and be like, oh, I have some input to this. And then chapter 2 be different, So it's it's all about that alignment in how you're presenting yourself is, hey, we're in this together. Here's some insight I have. I want to hear some insight from you, because we're all trying to get the same answer, the same information.
Yeah, exactly. And that's why some live videos or live streams, like on YouTube, for example, get such good responses and good engagement from people, is because when people are in the chat and then they see that the person who's doing the live stream, they're actually reading what they're
Yeah.
typing live and responding and engaging with them, that
Yeah.
gets them excited.
I heard an interview once, or read an interview with Damon Lindelof, who was a showrunner, writer for Lost. And he was describing this phenomenon with weekly television, which was the audience wants to simultaneously feel like you have a plan and you know exactly what's going to happen, and you have all the information figured out in advance to be confident with you. At the same time, they want to feel like they're part of this living organism and that their feedback matters in what they're doing. And he goes, it's a balance as a screenwriter to go, yes, we have a plan, but at the same time, when people respond to season 2 and go, ooh, I don't like how this storyline's going, or that character I'm not connected with, he goes, we need to embrace that and shift as we go. And I think the same thing holds true here, where it's like, yes, your audience, it needs to have some degree of confidence that, like, oh, you are an expert in this field. You do know a lot about this, or at least have experience in this. But at the same time, nobody, as you described, is like, nobody knows everything. And I would challenge that nobody likes a know-it-all. Somebody that thinks that they know everything, I don't connect with. And I think most people would share that. So I'm like, I connect more with people that go, oh, wow, they know a lot, or they're one step ahead of me in certain areas, but, oh, maybe I have some insight to this other thing. And now it's a community. Now it's less about like, oh, the analogy I just came up with is like a community or a group versus a cult, where it's like we have this leader that, like, we just blindly follow. We know, we listen to
Yeah.
everything they say, versus like, oh, we're all sitting at a round table and we're all discussing this together.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, that plays out better. And so, and again, all of this has to do with overcoming that hurdle of getting the content, because the pressure's off. If you can start embracing this of like, um, incorporating a community and just I'm sharing my thoughts. I want to get input. I want to learn as much as I want to give. That kind of mentality takes the pressure off, because now you don't need to feel like the barrier is I need to have all the answers before I hit record on day one. In fact, you shouldn't. You should, kind of open-ended approach it, I think.
Right. Exactly. And what you said made me think of like we have open systems and we have closed systems, kind of like open-minded and closed-minded. Open-minded will explore more different ways, but the closed-minded is rigid and set in their own ways. It's like in
Yeah.
physics we have open systems and we have closed systems, and
Right.
closed systems don't change. The open systems improve
Yeah.
constantly and
Right.
constantly are in motion. And that's how it's like the easiest way for you to also learn and improve and grow your, not just your business, but your way of communicating and the way of interacting, because now you have more of an organic force kind of coming from the outside
Yeah.
that also helps you shape how you communicate and how you do it.
Right. And we are living proof of this, that, last week we started episode 1 just as a test, just as a like, let's try this, let's have this be an organic conversation of us trying to decide what content we should be. And we made the commitment to each other on that call of like, let's do this every week. From there, we literally, minutes before we started recording, said, let's talk about how to start, recording, how to overcome those barriers. We have a rough idea or a sketch of what we might talk about next week. We have no idea what we're doing week 4, right? So like this isn't something that we were allowed ourselves to be hindered by, oh, we need to know what the next 10 episodes are, the first 10 episodes are. We need to know what this content is. And yeah, that's intimidating sometimes. Especially if you haven't done that before, or that like kind of flying without a safety net kind of thing of like, oh, I don't know. What if I run out of things to say? Or what if we don't have a topic to, okay, so be it. Then it's a 3-episode series or whatever. Like there is no, if you try something, it doesn't work, you're not going to break anything, it's
Yeah.
I always like
I
trying to instill confidence. Like, you're not going to break it.
Right. I think that's an interesting thing. That's kind of another psychological thing that introduces on the mindset level, that ease of just kind of going with it, just
Yeah.
going with the flow. Wherever it takes
Right.
you, you go. And you don't be too rigid, or you don't be too attached to certain outcomes of like, I need it to be this way. I need it to
Yeah.
be this many episodes and this much time each episode, and has to be this. It's good if that's the way you operate and if that helps you to keep yourself structured, because I know I'm a structure person and I love structure. I love schedules. I love having systems in place and things that I can check off. But sometimes it gets a little too tight to where you
Yeah.
go, "Ooh," and then you start feeling really, really bad when you
Yeah.
don't hit the mark, when you don't
Yeah.
check off those tasks, when you don't hit the schedule, and then the anxiety comes in, and then the overwhelm becomes even greater, and then you just get depressed and you stop
Mhm.
altogether doing it. You start and you stop, because now you're put yourself into those rigid blocks to where you're like, I can't fit into this, and if I can't, might as well not do it at all.
Right. Right.
So just let it go. Kind of ease yourself in and out of it. Whatever goes, goes. However it takes you, just let it flow.
Yeah. And I think this is a phrase we hear a lot, but I think it's certainly appropriate in this, of like letting yourself fail, giving yourself permission to fail. That's a totally legitimate outcome. And you hear the famous stories of Thomas Edison of like trying thousands of times to invent the light bulb before he got that one to work. And I think the same thing is true here, is that one, like you said, is that, not, you don't have to have everything figured out and all the angles and fit into this certain structure and box. While at the same time, I would say that's good. And especially when that matches your personality to go, okay, I know this much and I respond well to a schedule like we did, that we were like, hey, let's put this on the calendar and be accountable to each other that this is the time I'm setting aside each week to do this. And if that works for you, then that's good. At the same time to go, but that's okay if that changes. If after a couple of weeks this isn't working and we need to adjust, we can adjust. And there isn't, because the minute it flips over into, like we were saying, of like that, oh, now it becomes this job. Now it becomes this like, oh, I have to do it. And now I can't because this thing came up. And now like you said, you just start spiraling of like, I'm a failure. I'm not, I'm disappointed in myself, or I can't do it. It's all good information, because then you go, okay, all right, I can't take on that schedule. I can't take on that format. Great. What did I learn? You know what? I enjoyed this part of it. Maybe I do more of that and less of this other thing. And just, yeah, start. There's, and I think that's a big thing that maybe we need to get into, is like the value of just getting started, just taking that, hitting record, making that first thing, is the challenge. And sometimes, and I experience, I've done this, for my whole career, but I'm like, there is that still that blank page, first draft kind of, step is still a challenge, and it still brings a lot of weight with it.
Exactly. I've experienced it too many times to where I think, okay, I'm gonna start recording videos and here I go, hit record, and I just stare into the camera. I don't know what to say, and I start and it doesn't sound good. Then I restart and no, it doesn't sound right, and it just keeps going and restarting. It's like, okay. I think if that happens, you just pause and come back to the basics again
Yeah.
of why you're doing it, what is it that you're actually trying to accomplish, who are you helping, why are you helping, and are you enjoying this? Is this the part that you are enjoying? And go back to all the way to that feeling of what brings you joy about it and start with that. Just start with the joy of it
Yeah.
so that
Yeah.
you don't feel the pressure, you just feel joy from doing it,
Yeah.
and then that will take you to the next step and to the next.
And I think along that is like finding the joy and then kind of scraping away or removing the other things for now. You can always layer those things back in there, but going, what is the thing that I enjoy? What's the joy of this? I just want to focus on that. And one of the things that, I coach people through and, sometimes use as a technique for myself is is going back to what I was talking about with like, as feeling the need to like share everything, is that sometimes it feels like I came up with this plan, I'm creating this content, I'm going to post it on my social media, I'm going to have it on my YouTube channel, I'm going to do all this, that we we were missing that big chunk between the moment you record and the moment it's posted. that we start thinking, okay, I'm going to start recording and this all goes out on my social media. And that's not true. It's just not true unless you're going live, but I would recommend not starting with that. So go, hey, you know what? I'm going to do a test run. I'm just going to get up, I'm going to turn on the camera and tell yourself, I'm not posting this. This is not going public. This is just for me. This is just something that I want to watch back and I want to, observe and be very honest with. This is episode 0. This is episode, test run. And just do it that way, knowing nobody else is going to see this. This is just for me. This is just to try it out and I'm going to make approaches. 9 times out of 10, when you do that, you'll watch it back and be like, wow, I'm so glad I did that. I'm relieved that's done. And you know what? It's pretty good. And then you just post it. And then from that, so it's like you were talking about at the beginning of like taking that small incremental step, less about like, okay, I need to shoot the perfect video, edit the perfect video, post the perfect video, have all the right keywords, and going, no, just do the one thing. Just record a good video. It doesn't even have to be perfect. Just record a video, and then worry about the other stuff. Now, but you still have that backup. If you watch it and you're like, oh my gosh, this is terrible. There's no way this is going to see the light of day. Great. Then kind of watch through it with a different lens of going, what do I need to fix? What don't I like? What can I improve?
Yeah.
And go from there.
Maybe if your reaction right away is, oh, this is terrible. What was I thinking? This is absolutely not usable. Put it away for like a few hours at least.
Yeah.
Maybe for a couple of days, then come back and watch it again. Because sometimes when we rewatch ourselves right away, our mind goes automatically into judgment mode.
Yeah.
Oh, this is not good. Oh, how I sound. Oh, my voice. Oh, my look. Oh, this, and that.
Mm-hmm.
And that judgment just is, it's not real, because when someone else is going to see it, they're going to be like, I don't see any of it. It's
Yeah.
fine.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
So, and sometimes when you give yourself some time, when you remove yourself from directly doing it right away, give yourself a day or two, or maybe just a few hours, and then you come back, you kind of reset your mind from running of, oh, this, and that, to just kind of calmly observing. And then 9 times out of 10, you see it differently, and you're like, oh, that's okay. This is fine. I just need to make a couple of notes, maybe for next time, but this is okay. I can improve as I go.
Yeah. And you're always going to be your biggest critic. You're always going to notice those things that nobody else was going to notice. And it is, it's good to have somebody that you trust, or somebody that you're close with, to that can be honest and knows how to communicate with you, to go, hey, can you just take a quick look at it? Like, is this okay? Like, am I being too critical? And get some honest feedback, if that's a spouse or a loved one or a brother or sibling, or, just to get that somebody that you trust,
Yeah.
and get their perspective.
Sometimes when we get too deep absorbed into doing something, we become like kind of half blind to what we're
Mm-hmm.
doing. Like, I had that happen many times during different experiences. Like, for example, I'm editing a video that is like a short, let's say it's a short film, like 30 minutes long, and
Yeah.
I'm color grading every scene, and I'm going and I'm looking at all the colors. How does this look? How does that look? And looking at all the scopes and everything. And then by the like 3/4 through the video, I'm already, I don't know what my colors look like, and everything that I look at just looks
Yeah.
bad, and I'm like, I don't know what I'm
Yeah.
looking at. This is too green. This is too magenta. This is too
Right.
this, too that.
Yeah.
And I have to call my husband and say, does this look fine to you?
Right.
Because I can't see anymore.
Yeah. 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 Get another perspective, or zooming out, and
Yes.
yeah, for sure.
And the same thing with, for example, I paint. When you paint, you get too close and you work
Mm-hmm.
on all the details, and then it's like, this doesn't look. But then you always have to step back and
Yeah.
look at it from the other side of the room. And then when you do that, it's like, oh, that looks completely different from what
Yeah.
I was just looking at up close.
Right.
And
Right.
just like changing your perspective helps so much. That's why removing yourself from immediately doing something and kind of stepping back
Yeah.
helps a lot in many situations.
And that's a tough skill. Like, that is a tricky skill to, like, turn on and off that part of your brain. And I'm constantly struggling with that. Like, I'm always falling into that hole where I'm like, I see it all. I see all the things, and I know what went on behind the scenes. I know what happened just before I was recording. I know the mental state I was in. I know I was a little hungry. I know that, I was, whatever. Like, I know all those components, and I know, gosh, that wasn't the light that I wanted to put up there, but I had to bounce it to do this. And I know that there was a garbage truck going by outside. Like, I'm aware of all those things. And it's a tough skill to, like, turn those parts of your brain off and watch it critically. And I'm curious, like, do you, especially as an artist, like, how do you, what do you have any techniques of, like, how to turn that on and off and go, okay, I'm going to look at it from this perspective. Now I'm going to look at it from that perspective. Like, How do you do that? Because it's a struggle.
Yeah, it's just first of all, I needed to learn to notice when I get a little kind of when my perception gets a little dulled from just looking too much into it. And
Yeah.
once I notice that, then I'm like, okay, I need to put this aside. I need to take a break. And I like as an artist, I paint. If I work on one painting for a long time, if it's like a bigger painting, I don't paint it in one sitting. Well,
Mhm.
first, of course, there's multiple layers. They all need to dry and all that. But an interesting thing is I do a session to where I paint a couple of layers and I look at it and I'm like, it's kind of ugly, but I know it's going to improve with
Yeah.
the next layer, next. And then I set that painting aside. And then I come back and look at it in a few minutes from the other side of the room and it looks different to me
Yeah.
from what it looked like when I was just painting, like right here. Here, good example. I have this painting right here. I started. This is probably like 2 or 3 sessions in, and this is nowhere finished.
Yeah.
And every time I look at it after I took a break, it looks different to me.
Yeah. Right. Right.
And
And I would assume there's part of that is like you're filling in some of the gaps. You're going, I know I'm going to do this and I want to do that and this still needs to be done. So it's almost like you're layering on these elements that haven't been done yet because you're seeing your plan or where you're heading with it.
yes, and sometimes I have a good plan to where I know this is what it needs to look like. This is what I need to work on. And every next time I come and look at it, I see some more additional things that I could do right away or something that I can do next to
Yeah.
help it. Or sometimes,
Right.
like with this painting, I did a couple of sessions and now I look at it and I'm like, it's not going the way I want it to, and
Sure.
it's completely off. And my
Yeah.
reference image that I'm using, I don't like anymore. So
Sure. Sure.
now I want to figure out how do I like
Yeah.
remake it
Yeah.
without using my reference image. Now I have to go off of, okay, put the reference image aside. Different vision now. What can
Yeah.
I do? And so the
Right.
next time I take this and work on it, it might look completely different because now I'm like, okay, I need to add depth. I need to add shadows and highlights and push this back, push this forward and make it a little bit more real or more dramatic or whatnot.
Yeah.
Because right now I think it looks flat.
Yeah. Yeah.
Before, when I made that reference image, I thought that looked fine. Now I'm like, no, that doesn't work. So
Yeah.
every time something changes.
And that goes back to the going with the flow. That goes, you set out with one plan and embracing that like, okay, this is looking different or this is becoming something different, then you shift and you're now adapting and going, okay, I need to reapproach that. That's not something that you could have planned or set out, nor would you have to be like, okay, I'm going to use this reference material till I get halfway through the painting. Then I'm going to throw that out and I'm going to do something like that's not a plan that you would have set out on.
Right,
But it
exactly.
could come up and I think that's what's brilliant about it is like then you end up with something that you never expected that will probably surprise you and will probably be like, "Oh, that's something totally different than what I would have done." And I learned something else from it and I grew from it. And now it's a new, you know, it's a new version of being proud of it or a new version of what I thought I was going to be able to do when I set out to start it.
Yeah. I think trusting the flow and trusting the process, that's a huge thing. And we just need to remember as creators that that flow will always take you where you need to be. That's interesting. Flow, we just watched the movie, the
Well,
animated
yeah, yeah, yeah,
movie Flow. We bought
yeah.
a Criterion version of it on a Blu-ray or like
Oh, nice,
they have stickers.
cool.
And it's such a great metaphor for like the creative process and for
Yeah,
any
yeah,
type of process. Just trust the flow. It will take
yeah,
you exactly where you need to be and you will learn things as long as you stay open-minded and you're willing to adjust and you're willing to let those kind of outside influences to come in and to steer you into the direction you didn't expect it would take you.
And that's a tough one too. Like that trusting the flow is so important. And so like any sort of trust is like, that has to be earned. That has to be built on something. It can't be arbitrary. And when you get into that is like, sure, we've been doing this for a long time. So it's easier for us to trust that flow because I know what raw footage looks like and what a final product can look like. And I know what um, all these experiences and these tricks of the trade to bring this out and bring that out and do this. And so my threshold of throwing footage out because it's just unusable is much lower because I've gone from, beginning to end so many times that I have that it's easy for me to trust the flow is the essence when I'm doing this. Now, if I'm rebuilding a hot rod, I've never done that before. I have no idea. It would be very difficult for me to look at these random car parts and be like, oh, this is going to be this really cool hot rod. I've never done it. I don't know. I could not trust that flow. But
That's interesting. That makes me think of also being open-minded to where you're willing to learn to do something new that you've never done before.
yeah,
Because
yeah,
the funny thing is, when I was in college, I had this old used Toyota Camry, and one time it just started smoking from under the hood. The smoke is coming. I'm like, oh
yeah,
my God, what's going on? Is it going to explode? What's
yeah.
happening to my
Right,
car?
right,
And as a college kid, you don't have a lot of money. I didn't have a lot of money to go
right.
just drop my car off into the shop and just fix it. No, I didn't have money at all. Like when I was going to college, and I had to look it up. I'm like, okay, what's happening? Oh, it's a radiator. Check this out. Okay, I'm opening the hood. I'm trying to look. Okay, it is coming from the radiator. It matches the picture.
Yeah, right.
And then I was just researching and learning, and then I ended up replacing my radiator in my Camry by myself with
Wow.
my two hands and just bought some tools and just did it and ordered a new radiator, replaced it, and it worked. And I'm like, okay, great, it works. Now
I
I know
did
how
it.
to fix a radiator.
Yeah. And now, next time that you're driving a car, if this hasn't happened yet, and you see smoke coming out, your fear level goes down and your
Exactly.
confidence goes up to go, oh, I've been here before. I know what this
Yes.
is. I know how to fix it. And if it is something I need to replace, I can do it,
And actually did it twice.
There you go. See? So, and I would say like, yes, that's a hard thing to like, to start with. And so I think it's embracing the unknown for one, but it also goes back to the point of like, but being that should be encouragement to push yourself through this. Take one video or audio or post or whatever you're doing and get it from beginning to end. And just trying to, using a podcast as an example, just getting a podcast from recording to editing to sweetening to posting, like just get that whole process done. And the more you can kind of follow that, that's where your confidence will rise. And like, okay, I can start trusting the process. I know I did it once. Now I just need to do it again. All the things we said are still true of like, yeah, if you watch it back and you do that first pass, nobody has to see it and you can throw it out. But I think it's important too, not to just get stuck on step one, is to go, okay, let me just take it. And like with the radiators, like just step by step, just taking it piece by piece and looking to information or people that have done it before, whether that be Googling it or YouTube videos, which again goes back to like the content side, is like somebody's going to find the value. The person that made a YouTube video about how to replace a radiator probably has done that thousands of times. Like, this is easy. I could do this in my sleep. But somebody finds it and goes, oh, this is helpful because I've never done this before. So that speaks to, again, the confidence that you should have as a content creator of whatever information that you're sharing, that you have a degree of confidence, you have experience in this, sharing it with that one person, that one-on-one of like focusing on them and the value they need, that you're helping them. That takes the pressure off of you. It's full circle.
Yeah, and I think too another part of it is that when you start making that content and when you start going through the process of preparing, recording, editing, posting, now you're learning about the process and you're also learning about what comes natural and easy to you in the process and what is it that you struggle with and you go, well, I really like recording, but this editing part isn't that great. So what do I do about it? Well, you have a couple of options. One, you can hire somebody to edit your videos, or two, you can record in the manner of pretend it's live and just,
Yeah.
if you make a mistake, just go with it, keep going, and you don't have to edit. You just
Yeah.
post the entire thing.
Right. Right. Live to tape, as
Yeah.
the old term used to be.
Yeah, that's like a whole method of recording videos now to where you pretend like you are a news anchor on a live broadcast, and if you
Hmm.
make a mistake, you just roll with it and
Yeah.
take the entire thing and you post it
And
as is.
yeah, and I mean, this could be a whole topic in itself, but I think that there's an extra layer of comfort that your viewers get from that, of like, now it again kind of brings you down to their level and going, hey, we're together. I'm just a human. I don't know all the answers, and I make mistakes and I say things wrong and I'm not perfect. Kind of starts removing that when you're doing it as a one take or as a live to tape kind of scenario, because now viewers are not seeing that really polished, high quality, high end sort of thing. And we had this conversation, maybe we touched on it last week, of like, of we did that with our own content, that we had this really great looking showcaseable content, and kind of our new approach of kind of the direction we're going is more of that, like, let's kind of strip away some of that and not put out bad quality, but to go, let's not be so hung up on the studio quality imagery as much as the focusing on the information.
Exactly, because I think there is time and place for everything and comes
Yeah.
back down to what's the purpose of this piece of content that you're making or of the style of content that you're making, because there is a time and a place for being raw and authentic and making mistakes and just
Uh-huh.
saying everything as it flows. And there's also room for cutting it down and polishing it and making it precise and strict. And there are different ways of when you would do one and when you would do the other, different situations.
Yeah, yeah. And I know we kind of talked about, possibly next week talking about, what the type of content should be. And I think that that's a good direction to go, of like, what do you talk about? And there's a lot of ways to kind of approach that. But, as it pertains to this conversation, that I think that, when you're starting off and you're just trying to get over that initial hurdle of like, you know, everything we're talking about today is stripping away those kind of barriers to make it that much easier and that much more attainable to getting in there. And I think to a degree of that is also going, hey, this first video is going to be something I do know inside and out. I'm going to talk about, this element of my business that I talk about all the time. And, that could be your story, your business story, your brand story of going, hey, here's why I did what I did, and here's who I am, and here's what we offer, and here's the part. Like, that's that elevator pitch, that all those kind of things that are right off the top of your head. And because you have done that, and this is the thing that I coach with a lot of people, is like, starting with that becomes very easy, because it's like you're having this conversation with clients every day anyway. When when they call up and say, hey, I'm interested in your product or service, tell me a little bit more about it. You've got that. You could pull that out of nowhere. You could do that, in your sleep. So like, that's an easy one to start with. And I think, again, removing that barrier of going, this doesn't have to be like, oh, I'm going to talk about this topic that I'm uncomfortable on, or this is the thing that people need the most answers to, so I really need to do my research and make sure I say all the things right. Is go, start with it, what to talk about. And a lot of times that is making it personal. That is like my personal story of this company or this brand. Um, and likewise, I think that, you know, just it makes it easier to go, hey, I'm going to start recording, and I just need to talk about what I know how to talk about. The rest of it will work itself out. And again, knowing that, having that confidence or that flow to go, I'll have something to talk about next week, but like right now, I'm going to stick to what I know, and that's a good starting point.
Yeah, and I think that's a great point when you talk about that sharing that personal story. And I keep coming back to again to that idea of why. Why did you start your business? Why are
Uh-huh.
you doing it? And a lot of the time for people who are authentically doing their business for service to others, it always starts with some sort of a personal story, some sort of a problem, some sort of an event or thing that happened that led them to question to led to have a question that needed an answer, and
Yeah.
then how did that come about? There's always a story, and that also kind of makes it easy to make it engaging and make it interesting and make it actually like a storytelling element to it. And you know, we all are human and our brains are wired to connect with those stories because we
Well,
identify with them.
and I think that that opens up another element of this is that I think the a fear that we haven't really addressed of like starting this content creation is this and I would say a legitimate fear, legitimate concern of like, oh, I'm going to get critiqued, or I think there's people that are not in the inner circles of social media. The outside perspective is like everybody in the comments is mean and hateful, and they just and there's a degree of truth to that, but there's that's also I think a bit blown out of proportion because you hear the worst case scenarios. But I think that it's a very real and very legitimate thing of going, I'm scared to put myself out there, especially to strangers, because people are going to ridicule me. They're going to say I'm dumb, or that I don't know what I'm talking about, or I'm you know not you know whatever. And and I think again to overcome that hurdle or get you started um, is yes, when you can tell a personal story, people have less input to that. I'm not saying that it won't happen or people won't have something to say about that, but I found that that's much more rare when you say, "Here's why I'm doing what I do, and this is my reason for wanting to help people, and this is why I think that this is the thing." Whatever that topic is, when it's about yourself or your personal story, nobody can say, "Hey, you're wrong." You know, well, it's my story. I'm just telling. I'm just sharing. And this doesn't go against what we were saying before of like making it about the other person, but it is you can do both to go, hey, here's my story, and I want to hear from you what your story is or what your challenges are, what you're facing. And it starts to kind of you know curb that kind of criticism that you can get from that versus going, oh, I'm going to do all this research because I want to talk about a topic that I don't know as well, then yes, then the potential is higher of getting a lot of criticism about the information that you're giving out.
Yeah, and I think too, to the point of reacting to that kind of criticism and mean comments or whatever on social media is you just need to remember that yes, you will always get those people who will be mean and they will be critical and they will not like something. There's always people like that, and a lot of the time, or like almost 100% of the time, when somebody comments something on your video, it's not about what you said, it's not about you, it's something what it triggered in them.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
it's always about them. It's not
Yeah,
about you at all.
yeah,
You are just doing what you're doing, you're sharing your journey, you're sharing your story, you're sharing your expertise, your knowledge, your tips.
hmm,
They are processing it in their own brains and they're reacting to it. And what they're putting out is their process and their own reaction based on their internal state at the moment. And if they're mean, it's not about you, it's
yeah,
about them. It's
right.
they have some sort of a problem. Maybe they're overwhelmed. Maybe something upsets them in the moment. Maybe they're
Yeah.
dealing with a difficult situation in life. Something is triggering them to be mean. So don't ever take it personal. It's never about you. It's never about your content. It's always about the person who's making the comment.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
even if the person likes it, yeah, you can take credit that, yeah, that means I'm doing something right, but also remember it's also about them. They resonated with it. They, on a certain level, are maybe on the same wavelength as you are, and they are the people who are going to be following you. So maybe focus on them versus focusing on the ones who are bouncing it right back, and they're lashing out and they're projecting something that's not resonating within themselves onto you.
Yeah, and this I think the more we talk, the more that I'm like, oh, this is an episode. This is an episode. But that's a great episode because I'm like, there's so much to say about that. And yeah, that's bullying 101 is like, yeah, anybody that has something just mean spirited to say is always about themselves. It's always about some reflection, some mirror that you held up to them that made them feel a certain way. And and the other thing too is like, I'll say two things about this is one is in my experience you have much more control over creating the community than you think you do. And again, the stories that we hear, like the worst case scenario, these like major cyberbullying kind of things, and again, I'm not underplaying it, it's a very real thing, but the you look at these big channels, and I know it was really big when like prank channels were a big deal and those were huge. And that was like, well, you have these content creators that are building an audience around being mean or doing something mean to somebody, right? And whether it's a family member, like it's all in good fun or whatever, but it was like that kind of humor, that kind of approach. And so, yes, like-minded people are going to follow that channel, and that's going to bring out the worst of them. And so, like, that's the community that was created around that. And I think a lot of these stories got kind of became the face of the internet of like, oh yeah, everybody's trolling, everybody's mean, everybody's wants to attack each other. And again, I'm not saying that that doesn't exist. But I've found that like when you cultivate and are very deliberate about the community that you create, you'll see less of that. You'll find your own like-minded people. And when you are approaching it with an honesty and an earnesty of like, I'm here to help you. I'm here to offer information. I'm not coming at it from I know everything and I'm being a real person, a real honest. The more you can focus on that, you'll get that kind of people that will come and be a part of your community. There'll always be the outliers. There'll always be the one-offs, which is my second point that I want to make, which is those are the outliers. Those are the one-offs. Those are not your target community. All social media has really great platforms built on, hey, I can block this person, I can mute them, I can disable their comments, I can remove them. Because guess what? You're never in the business world. That's not the people that you're going to make a customer or a client, nor do you want them to be a customer or a client. So it's real easy to go, oh, here's somebody that's just here to be mean, just here to create noise, just here to create bad vibes. I'm going to remove them from my community. Now I'm going to focus on the rest of the people. And I encourage you to do that because it is really easy to get sucked into focusing on what one person said or one person. But again, you look at it going, okay, that's about them. And that is not about me. And guess what? They're not the person I'm trying to talk to anyway. So they have no
Right.
business here and I'm going to take them out. Not take them
Exactly.
out. Sorry. Take them out of the comments. No, I'm not promoting violence, taking them out of the comments.
Yeah. And two magic words that I have that I use for myself at the core of everything is intention and attention. Again, intention is about remembering why you're doing it.
Uh-huh.
And attention is where do you focus on? Where do you put your
Yeah.
attention on? And if you take your attention away from the negative comments, from the bullies, from the trolls, and you put your attention into the positive, into the, again, why you're doing it and building the community that you want to build, then you will actually naturally see less of the bullying, less of the trolling, and because it's not important, you don't want to focus on something that is not serving you or anybody else.
Yeah,
Why would you
yeah.
give it your attention at all?
And it's a big thing that will start sucking the joy out of it. It'll start removing that. Then it does. Stops being fun, which I think is the uh, maybe one of the themes of this episode is like if you can find the fun and find the joy, the reason, the intention behind what you're doing, um, then it makes it easier to take that one small step, that one not to quote NASA, but like to take that one initial step, whether that be, hey, I'm just going to start brain dumping ideas onto a blank piece of paper as a start of a script, or it is I'm going to just put the camera on prop up my phone on a chair and I'm going to start talking about why I started my business. And I hit record and I'm not going to send this video out to anybody. It's just for me as a test. Whatever, just making that first step as small as possible. And I think, I respond to I think similar to you, Irina, is like I respond to like that structure of going, I need that scheduled. If I schedule tomorrow at 3 o'clock, I'm going to make sure that I have my camera set up and I hit record and I'm going to start talking just for me, just to have that happen. It's much more likely to happen than if I go, sometime this week, I want to get that done. Um, and whatever those hurdles are, I think just trying to strip away those, set the stuff off that doesn't need to be worried about now for later, and remove the barriers to just start is the biggest takeaway, I think.
Yeah, not to quote anybody, but just do it is a really good phrase.
For sure, for sure. So as we wrap up this episode, I want to, again, offer, any way that we can help you take that first step. If you go onto our website, there's a lot of information that we have on there about, what we offer and what we do. But I would say even just scheduling a consultation call, if you need that somebody that has been there before, that has done it, and you need a little nudge, a little extra encouragement to go, hey, I have this idea about doing a YouTube channel or a podcast, and you just want to bounce some ideas off of us, schedule a time. It's absolutely free. It's totally, no strings attached. This isn't like a sales pitch or anything like that. It's just a way of us offering a free consultation, a 30-minute kind of conversation with you to give you some feedback on just from our experience. And again, we're not saying we know everything or we know everything about content creation or how to do that, but we certainly have a lot of experience in that. And so schedule a time, and we'd love to jump on a call with you and hear what you have going on and offer any advice or feedback we can.
And I think it's a good place to wrap up. And next week, we will be talking about what is it that you can actually start making content on.
For sure. Yeah. Big topic. There's so many directions to go on that. So thank you all for listening, and we'll see you next week.
See you.